Hello and welcome to Finish Your Business. In our podcast, we leave no business unfinished. I am your host, Namrata Sethi. This podcast is brought to you by MEGE, which is a joint project of Haaga-Helia University of Applied Sciences, Helsinki Business College, Aalto University, and The Shortcut, and is funded by Udiman Lito. Joining us today is Janne Jokinen from Jokinen Associates. Welcome to our show, Janne.
Oh, thank you, Sethi. It's a pleasure to be here, and I feel really honored. And thank you.
Thank you. If you could please introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm an attorney in Finnish Asianajaja, which means member of the Finnish Bar Association. I also belong to this International Bar Association, and I have been in law practice over 30 years since my graduation. So doing advisory and dispute resolution for my clients. On the side, I also teach at Haaga-Helia University for Applied Sciences on these topics.
What does entrepreneurship mean to you and why is it important?
I think entrepreneurship is actually the key because if you think a bit like deeper what it means, it actually is the core how additional value is created in our economies. And if there are no entrepreneurs who are willing to take the risk and of course, in anticipation of for the reward, which is uncertain, there wouldn't be any development in technologies, in ways of doing business, in various fields of life. So it's fundamentally important.
Thank you. And how do you help entrepreneurs?
I help entrepreneurs by giving them advice, which is normally regarding contracts. They are in process of concluding, or if they have other type of questions like regarding if something is legal, if something is like doable according to the laws, and that is called proactive legal care, like taking care of the problem before it arises, actually. And of course, sometimes I also have to help entrepreneurs by solving these problems, like if there is a contract dispute which cannot be amicably settled by negotiation. So we have to resort to go to a court or start an arbitration. And in that way, I help and assist entrepreneurs.
Okay. And at what stage can they come to you?
Oh, at what stage? Yes, that is a very good question. Early on, that is my advice, because in hindsight, often I can see that a lengthy and very sort of financially and mentally taxing lawsuit could have been avoided by taking these necessary steps in advance before it has escalated. And often that is when the contract is being drafted and negotiated, because if you have a short, vague, incomplete contract, that opens up the possibility for these disputes afterwards. So it would be definitely worthwhile to contact early and in that way avoid these avoidable missteps, for example.
Yeah. Okay. And like, what legal issues should be considered when registering your business, or like when you have partners?
Um, if you form the most popular form running a business in Finland nowadays is a limited liability company, and you can form one without putting in any share capital. That is
Mhm.
relatively new, but you can have several shareholders, and uh, I think the most important thing when you are starting business with partners or shareholders uh, is to have a shareholder agreement where you beforehand you define the roles of everybody. What is the idea you have regarding your business? Are you going to grow it like intrinsically, or if you are going to look for venture capital, or at certain point maybe you want to flip the company, meaning you do an exit. So everybody is clear about the purpose and their roles, their responsibilities, and also about these exit mechanisms. It's clearly agreed. Then um, if one has to sell with the others, so-called.
Okay.
And there are many clauses, but that is a private document which is very important, and uh, I think every company or every startup uh, should have one, and preferably before you start the business, because when you have started your business, it's more difficult maybe to have an agreement on the content of your shareholder agreement.
Yeah. And what are the legal issues like when we are hiring?
When you're hiring, you have to take into account the Finnish labor law norms, like these norms covering employment. And historically in Finland, we have a lot of regulation in hiring people, and employees are quite well protected as a weaker party of that contractual relationship. And that's why it's important to know, for example, in the field specific collective agreement, if you have to comply with that, because in the collective agreement you find minimum as like wages and other uh, other employment related rules for that specific field.
What are the legal issues that we should be aware when fundraising? And
Fun,
yeah, and I
yes.
just wanted to
Uh,
ask, like where can we ask help for it?
oh, for fundraising, I think there are several sources you can resort to. There are these Finnish Venture Capital Association. There are official websites you can uh, retrieve the information from. For example, this trade register contains several links, and even if your own bank as an entrepreneur, they could have some ideas where you could uh, have more information contacts.
How are the companies in Finland taxed?
We have a flat rate corporate tax for limited liability companies, which is currently 20% for the profits. And then the owner will be taxed separately. If you take out salary as an entrepreneur from your limited liability company, it will be uh, taxed most often according to your personal income tax rate. But that depends on how much assets you have in the balance sheet, because you can take some part as dividends, which are then taxed as capital income and dividends, and some part of the dividends are salaried dividends. So the company pays for profits. Of course, business related expenses are first deducted, and then if the company shows a profit, 20% of that, and you have to take into account, if you take a salary from your company, that will decrease the amount of profits, because it's to be deducted before calculating the profit. But there is very good information available if you log on to, for example, the Finnish Tax Authority's website, vero.fi, and in several languages you can get very, very good detailed information on company taxation.
Okay. And what if I'm making less than 10K revenues on the first year?
If you make less than 10,000,
Yes, less than 10,000.
you mean as a profit or
Or revenue? Like, yes.
revenue? Okay, there might be possibilities that you can be exempted from VAT.
Okay.
You can apply for that. There are certain limits which are pretty low. It's not always actually very important to be exempted from the VAT, because that is a tax the entrepreneur collects from the customers, and it can be set off, like deducted against the VAT this entrepreneur has paid for business-related purchases, like computers, other equipment. So, but that's possible, and you can find more information on that in the previously mentioned websites.
And if I am not making any profit, how does
no
that
tax.
impact? Okay.
There is no tax if there is no profit. You can have a big revenue, but you can still be at loss, and losses you can carry forward. So if this year you make a loss, it will be confirmed in taxation. You can use it year after if you make profit, and it will be deducted in the future profits. There are time limits for that.
Okay.
But you can use even losses to benefit.
Yeah.
And
if I'm still,
yes,
and how does
sorry.
it impact, like, if I'm still hiring people? I'm not making profits, but I'm still hiring people.
You can finance their salaries by external funds, for example. If you have got capital infusion from a venture capital firm, for example, you can have a lot of money actually in the company bank account, and that can be used for salary payments, even if you don't make profit, but then you are burning investor money. Many companies, big companies, have done that, and they have just continuously shown losses, and funnily enough, their valuations have grown because the companies have grown in size, and so you can make losses provided you are adequately capitalized.
Okay. And for there is a lot of light people who are taking light entrepreneurship also. So, if are there any legalities that we should be aware that when I'm freelancing, like using UCO or Easy?
Yes, there's a relatively new ways of uh, trying that entrepreneur role, and there are services where you can invoice through your
Yeah.
different clients, and I see maybe it can be a good first step into like testing waters, if so to say,
Mm.
if you want to be an entrepreneur, or if you then after uh, trying that way, you can easily leave. Um,
Okay. Is there like any impact for taxes or legalities that we should be aware when we are taking the light entrepreneurship route?
let's see. There can be legal issues, and also relating to if you're considered as an employee, or if you are considered as an entrepreneur, and uh, it's actually a worldwide discussion at the moment, who are genuine entrepreneurs.
Mm.
These food messengers, for example, or Uber drivers, and in the UK there was high court decision coming out a few weeks ago, defining Uber drivers as employees. So, of course, it has a huge impact if you have to yourself as an entrepreneur pay towards your own pension
Mm.
entirely, because if you are employed, big part of your pension fees are actually paid by the employer, and you have all that employee protection. So um, it should be carefully considered.
And how from where do I get support from like accountant or SY or COC support?
Uh, that's very important what you asked, because you actually should have, as a starting entrepreneur, you should have a accountant who is
Mm.
reliable, who knows about these filings to the tax authorities regularly, um, can help you in many ways, and uh, there are these accountancy services available. You can search for an accountant, but you should. I think the important one is that you should have one. You shouldn't, as an entrepreneur, starting one, try to do all the things yourself, but you can outsource. And this is one field of activities you definitely should outsource, because these services are not expensive, but they are very, very useful.
Yeah, and it's often advised that when you're already as an entrepreneur, you already have so many roles in your company, and it's always better to get help when you can.
Yes, one shouldn't be too uh, shy on that, because there are various sources you can turn to. There are these in Finnish Uusyrityskeskus. This is like Center for New Enterprises.
Mm.
They publish actually over a 100-page long PDF document, also in English, which is a guide for starting entrepreneur, covering all the issues, not only legal, but a little bit of marketing and defining your customer groups and doing these risk analysis like SWOT, and it's a very, very good source. So you should try to find information from different sources, which are plenty, and not to try to just solve it yourself in a way. It's easier to contact these experts and get it right in one go, so to say.
And this brings us to the last question. What advice you would give to an entrepreneur in 5 words?
5 words. Trust yourself, be resilient, hopeful.
That's great. Very valuable advice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Yanni, and giving us this amazing insight on this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sethi. As I said in the beginning, it has been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.